Admiral Susan Wright stood by the large window on the bridge of the UES Defiant. Her gray hair was tied back in a tight bun. Her blue uniform was neat and pressed. She watched as 5 huge ships appeared near Earth. They came without warning. They did not ask for permission. "Imperial ships detected, Admiral," said Lieutenant Paul Gordon. His voice was calm, but his hands shook slightly. "They're bigger than anything we've seen before." Susan nodded. She had known this day would come. For 20 years, Earth had been watching the stars. Their secret space probes had seen the Galactic Empire take over world after world. The pattern was always the same. The Empire would arrive, demand surrender, and take what they wanted. "All stations battle ready," Susan ordered. "But do not fire unless I give the command." The crew moved quickly. Shields powered up. Weapons, systems came online. But nothing showed on the outside of the ship. To the Imperial scanners, Earth's fleet would look primitive and defenseless. "They're sending a message," said Commander Jack Nelson. He was in charge of communications. His dark skin contrasted with the bright lights of his console. "It's being broadcast worldwide." On screens across Earth, an alien face appeared. It had purple skin, 6 eyes, and spoke with a deep, rumbling voice. This was the first time most humans had seen an alien. "People of Earth," the alien said. "I am Grand Ambassador Zorkthal of the glorious Galactic Empire. Your planet is now under Imperial protection. Resistance is both foolish and unnecessary. Prepare to welcome Imperial ships. They bring civilization and order to your primitive world." President Olivia Martinez sat in the White House Situation Room. Around her were the top leaders from every nation. This was the moment they had prepared for since discovering the Empire's existence. "Are we ready?" she asked. General Henry Ford nodded. "Operation Porcupine is fully activated. All defense systems are ready. The underground shelters can hold 90% of the population. And the special weapons?" the president asked. Dr. Alan Carter, a thin man with thick glasses, spoke up. "The quantum shields are operational. The gravity disruptors are in place. We can begin the evacuation of major cities at your command." The president took a deep breath. She pressed a button opening a secure line to the UES Defiant. "Admiral Wright, you have authority to engage diplomatic protocols." Susan nodded at the screen. "Yes, Madam President." The Defiant moved forward, positioning itself between Earth and the Imperial fleet. It was tiny compared to the massive alien. "Ships, open a channel," Susan ordered. Jack worked at his console. "Channel open, Admiral." Susan stood straight and spoke clearly. "This is Admiral Susan Wright of the United Earth Defense Force. We wish to discuss terms with the Empire's representatives." There was a long pause. The Empire rarely received responses from planets they targeted. Usually there was panic or immediate surrender. Finally, a reply came. "Your primitive vessel is noted. Prepare to receive Imperial Ambassador Zorkthal. He will explain your new place in the Empire." 3 hours later, Ambassador Zorkthal arrived on the Defiant. He was escorted to the ship's conference room where Susan waited with her officers. The alien was tall, almost 7 feet, and wore flowing robes covered in strange symbols. "Your ship is most quaint," Zorkthal said. He did not sit in the offered chair. "I will be brief. The Empire requires 40% of your planet's resources. 10 million humans will serve in our labor forces. Your governments will be replaced by Imperial governors." Susan kept her face neutral. "And what does Earth receive in return?" The alien seemed surprised by the question. "You receive the honor of joining the Empire. Your people will no longer live in primitive isolation. Your children will learn proper civilization." Susan nodded slowly. "I see. And if we refuse?" Zorkthal made a sound like rocks grinding together. It might have been laughter. "No one refuses the Empire, but if you try, your major cities will be destroyed as examples. Then we will take what we want anyway." Susan touched a small device on her wrist. It sent a signal to the president. In the White House, President Martinez received the signal. It was time for humanity's response. She opened a channel that would broadcast to both the Imperial ships and all of Earth. "Ambassador Zorkthal," she said calmly. I am President Olivia Martinez of the United Earth Alliance. I have heard your terms. The people of Earth have a response. She paused, knowing that history would remember these words. The people of Earth respectfully decline your generous offer. You have 48 hours to leave Terran space. On the screen, the alien's 6 eyes blinked rapidly. You misunderstand, human leader. This is not a negotiation. No, the president agreed. It is not. It is a warning. Earth is not defenseless. We are not unprepared. We have observed your empire for decades. We know your methods. We know your weaknesses. The alien's purple skin darkened. Your primitive scanning technology could not possibly. We have ships beyond your detection systems, the president continued. We have weapons you have not encountered. We have united our planet against external threats. The choice is yours. Leave peacefully or face the consequences. Zorkthal turned to Susan. Is this some kind of joke? Your leader dooms your world. Susan smiled slightly. Our leader speaks for all of us, Ambassador. 48 hours. Back on the Imperial command ship. Zorkthal reported to Fleet Commander Drulzenk. The humans refuse our terms, he said. They threaten us with primitive weapons. Drulzenk checked the scans again. Earth had basic spacecraft, simple orbital platforms, and minimal planetary defenses. Nothing that could harm an Imperial destroyer, let alone 5. They will learn respect, the commander said. Prepare the first wave. Target their largest cities. Their surrender will come quickly after that. What the Imperial scans failed to detect were the thousands of stealth satellites in Earth orbit. They missed the underwater bases housing Earth's real fleet. They didn't notice the quantum shield generators buried deep in the planet's crust. As the 48-hour deadline approached, cities across Earth appeared to empty. In reality, people moved to vast underground complexes built for just this purpose. Military personnel took their positions. Scientists monitored defense systems. Captain Samantha Lee commanded the stealth satellite network from a base deep under the Pacific Ocean. All units report ready, her second-in-command said. Good, she replied. The Imperials have 6 hours left. I doubt they'll wait that long. She was right. 5 hours later, the Imperial ships moved into attack position. Admiral Wright watched from the Defiant. Begin evacuation procedures, she ordered her crew. All personnel to escape pods. As the Imperial ships powered up their weapons, Susan sent one final message to Earth Command. The Imperials have made their choice. Operation Porcupine is now active. Then she smiled. The Empire was about to learn why you should never threaten Earth. The Imperial ships fired their weapons. Huge beams of energy shot toward Earth's largest cities. Fleet Commander Drulzenk watched with satisfaction. This was how the Empire always won. Show power first, destroy resistance, take what you want. But something strange happened. The energy beams hit invisible barriers about 50 miles above Earth's surface. The barriers glowed blue for a moment. Then the energy beams bounced back toward the Imperial ships. Impossible, Drulzenk shouted. Evasive action. 3 Imperial ships managed to move in time. 2 did not. The returned energy beams hit them directly. One ship lost its weapon systems. The other lost engine power and began to drift. Dr. Allen. Carter watched from his underground lab beneath the Rocky Mountains. Screens showed the quantum shields working perfectly. They absorbed the Imperial energy, then sent it back with double the force. Phase 1 complete, he said to his team. Begin Phase 2. Around Earth, thousands of hidden satellites activated. They created a gravitational web that trapped the Imperial ships in place. The aliens could not move forward or back. Captain Samantha Lee gave the next command from her underwater base. Launch the stealth fighters. From oceans, mountains, and hidden bases on the moon, Earth's real fleet appeared. 500 small black ships that Imperial scanners couldn't detect. They surrounded the trapped Imperial vessels. On the damaged Imperial command ship, alarms sounded everywhere. Screens showed hundreds of human vessels appearing from nowhere. Where did they come from? Drulzenk demanded. Scan them. Scanners show nothing, an Imperial officer replied. But our eyes see them. The human ships fired no weapons. They simply surrounded the Imperial fleet in a tight formation. Then a message came from one of the Earth ships. "This is Lieutenant Greg Howard of Earth Defense. Your weapons have been turned against you. Your ships cannot move. You are trapped. We suggest you reconsider your position." Drulzank was not used to failure. The Empire had conquered thousands of worlds. No primitive planet had ever defeated them. "Prepare the landing forces," he ordered. "If we cannot destroy them from orbit, we will defeat them on the ground." Imperial dropships launched toward Earth. Each carried 100 Imperial soldiers in battle armor. They expected to land and face frightened humans with primitive weapons. General William Douglas waited in his command center under the Sahara Desert. His screens showed the Imperial drop, ships entering Earth's atmosphere. "Activate gravity disruptors," he ordered. All across Earth, special devices turned on. They changed the gravity in small areas of the atmosphere. The Imperial dropships hit these patches and spun out of control. Some crashed into oceans. Others landed miles from their targets in empty deserts or forests. One dropship managed to land near Chicago. The Imperial soldiers marched out ready for battle. Instead, they found an empty city. No humans to fight, no resistance to crush. "Where are they?" the Imperial squad leader asked. "Scan for life forms." Before they could scan, the ground beneath them opened. 50 human soldiers in special armor rose from hidden bunkers. They carried weapons the Imperials had never seen before. Major Frank Wilson led the human squad. "Surrender now," he called to the aliens. "You are surrounded." The Imperial soldiers laughed. Their armor was the best in the galaxy. Their weapons could destroy buildings. They fired at the humans, but the shots hit personal shields similar to the ones protecting Earth. The energy bounced back, hitting several Imperial soldiers. The rest looked at each other in confusion. Frank gave them no time to recover. "Fire. Stun weapons," he ordered. The human soldiers fired blue pulses that passed through the Imperial armor like it wasn't there. Within seconds, all the Imperial soldiers fell unconscious. Similar scenes played out wherever Imperial forces managed to land. They found no easy targets, no defenseless humans. Instead, they found carefully planned traps and weapons designed specifically to defeat their technology. Back in space, Admiral Susan Wright had escaped the Defiant before the battle began. Now she was on Earth's real flagship, the UES Guardian, hidden on the far side of the moon until now. The massive ship, twice the size of the largest Imperial vessel, moved into position. "Open a channel to the Imperial command ship," Susan ordered. On the Imperial vessel, Drulzank saw the huge Earthship appear on his screens. How had they hidden something so big? How had they developed technology that could defeat Imperial weapons? The Empire had ruled space for 50,000 years. These humans had barely reached their own moon a few decades ago. "Channel open," Jack Nelson said. He had joined Susan on the Guardian. "Imperial Commander," Susan said calmly. "Your attack has failed. Your ground forces have been captured. 2 of your ships are damaged. You cannot win this fight." Drulzank's voice shook with anger. "The Empire does not surrender to primitives." "We are not asking for your surrender," Susan replied. "We are giving you a choice. Leave Terran space now with your remaining ships or be destroyed. You have 1 hour to decide." The Imperial commander cut the communication. He called an emergency meeting with his officers. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "Their planet shows no signs of advanced technology. Our scans show primitive satellites, basic weapon systems. It appears they have developed cloaking technology, beyond our own," his science officer said, "and defensive systems specifically designed to counter our weapons." "But how would they know our weapons?" Drulzank asked. "We have never encountered humans before." The intelligence officer spoke quietly. "Actually, sir, we have detected human observation probes near several worlds we conquered in the past decade. We thought they were just collecting scientific data. Perhaps they were studying our tactics." Drulzank realized the truth. The humans had watched the Empire conquer other worlds. They had learned from others' defeats. They had prepared specifically for this moment. In the White House Situation Room, President Martinez waited for the Imperial response. Around her, Leaders from every nation watched the screens showing the trapped Imperial fleet. "Will they leave?" asked the Prime Minister of India. "If they're smart, they will," the President replied. But empires aren't known for being smart. They're known for being proud. After 55 minutes, the Guardian received a message from the Imperial Command. "Ship, this is not over," Droolzank said. "The Empire will return with a force that will crush your world to dust." "We will be waiting," Susan replied. The gravitational web deactivated. The 3 undamaged Imperial ships powered up their engines. They collected the crews from the 2 damaged vessels, then moved away from Earth. As they reached the edge of the solar system, Susan sent one final message. "Tell your leaders this. Earth is now declaring all Terran space off-limits to the Galactic Empire. Any Imperial ship entering our territory will be destroyed. Any attempt to attack Earth or its colonies will be met with immediate retaliation." There was no reply from the Imperial ships. They accelerated and disappeared into deep space. On Earth, people emerged from the underground shelters. They looked up at the sky with new understanding. They were not alone in the universe, and they were not defenseless. President Martinez addressed the world that evening. "Today, humanity faced its greatest threat and prevailed. But this was only the first battle. The Empire will return. We must prepare for what comes next." In deep space, the Imperial ships sent an urgent message to the Empire's capital world. The message was simple: the humans fight back. 6 months passed after the first battle. Earth used this time wisely. Scientists studied the captured Imperial soldiers and their equipment. Engineers reverse-engineered Imperial technology. Military leaders planned new defenses. Dr. Alan Carter worked day and night in his lab. The Imperial weapons had been stronger than expected. The quantum shields had held, but barely. He needed to make them better before the Empire returned. "Look at this," he said to his assistant Lisa Brown. He pointed to a piece of Imperial armor. "Their metal is unlike anything on Earth. It's both lighter and stronger than our best materials." Lisa nodded. "Can we make it ourselves?" "We already are," Alan said with a smile. "Factories across the world are producing it now. Soon all our ships will have this armor." In a military base under the Atlantic Ocean, General William Douglas trained special forces for space combat. The captured Imperial soldiers were helping, though not by choice. Each one wore a translator device that allowed them to understand and speak English. "Your fighting style is too direct," said one Imperial soldier named Kraz. "Imperial troops are trained to fight in formation. They expect direct attacks." William nodded. "So we use guerrilla tactics. Hit and run. Never attack where they expect." "Exactly," Kraz said. "The Empire has conquered 1,000 worlds, but none fight like humans. You are unpredictable." Not all the news was good. Earth's spy satellites reported massive Imperial fleet movements. The Empire was gathering its forces. The next attack would be much larger than the first. President Martinez called an emergency meeting with Admiral Wright and the other military leaders. "How much time do we have?" she asked. Susan looked grim. "Our best guess is 3 months. They're assembling the 7th Imperial Armada. It's the largest fighting force in that part of the galaxy." "Can we win against something that big?" the president asked. General Douglas spoke up. "Not with direct force. But we don't need to beat their entire fleet. We just need to make the cost of victory too high." "Operation Porcupine," the president nodded. "Make ourselves too painful to swallow." "Exactly," Susan said. "And we have some new tricks they won't expect." Chief Communications Officer Kelly Peterson had been monitoring Imperial communications for months. She discovered that the Imperial ships used a special frequency to communicate during battle. This knowledge would be very useful. "We can send false orders to their ships," she explained to Lieutenant Ben Parker and his team of computer experts. "They won't know the commands." "Are coming from us," Ben nodded. "We've already created viruses that will activate when they enter our system. Their ships will start fighting each other." 3 months later, just as predicted, Imperial scouts appeared at the edge of the solar system. Earth was ready. This time, There would be no attempts at diplomacy. This time it was war. Supreme Overlord Xanthrix had sent his best commander, Grand Admiral Vornath, to lead the attack. Vornath had never lost a battle in 300 years of service to the Empire. These humans have been lucky, Vornath told his officers. But luck always runs out. We have studied their tactics from the first battle. We are prepared for their tricks. What Vornath didn't know was that humans had been preparing new tricks. The captured Imperial soldiers had provided valuable information. Earth now understood Imperial battle tactics better than the Empire understood humans. The 7th Imperial Armada entered the solar system with 200 ships. It was the largest fleet humans had ever seen. The ships spread out to avoid being trapped like the First Fleet. They've learned, Susan said from the bridge of the Guardian. But so have we. She gave the order. Activate Operation Darkwater. Across the solar system, hidden bases on moons, asteroids, and even inside gas giants powered up. These were not just defensive positions. They were trapdoors. As the Imperial fleet passed Jupiter, the space around them seemed to bend. Dozens of artificial wormholes opened, created by technology Earth had developed based on Imperial science. Half the Imperial fleet was pulled through these wormholes and scattered across different parts of space, hundreds of light years apart. Vornath watched in horror as his carefully organized fleet was torn apart. "What is happening?" he demanded. "Some kind of space distortion," his science officer replied. "They're creating artificial wormholes. That's impossible." But it wasn't impossible. Dr. Alan Carter had discovered the theory in the Imperial database from the captured ships. Earth scientists had made it work. The remaining Imperial ships regrouped and continued toward Earth. They were still a powerful force. They began their attack with a massive energy bombardment that lasted 3 days. Earth's improved quantum shields held. The energy weapons couldn't break through. But the shields were weakening. They wouldn't last much longer. Time for phase 2, Susan ordered. Earth's hidden fleet emerged from concealment. But instead of attacking directly, they executed a complex maneuver. Each ship released dozens of small drones. The drones attached themselves to Imperial ships and began broadcasting on Imperial frequencies. Suddenly, Imperial captains received conflicting orders. Some were told to attack specific coordinates. Others were told to fire on friendly ships. The Imperial communication network descended into chaos. "Shut down all communication systems," Vornath ordered. But it was too late. The confusion had already spread through the fleet. On Earth, Ben Parker and his team watched their computer viruses spread through the Imperial network. "It's working," he said. "Their ships are firing on each other." The battle raged for 7 days. The skies above Earth burned with energy weapons and exploding ships. The ground shook from near misses that broke through the weakening shields. When it was over, the Imperial fleet was in ruins. Of the 200 ships that entered the solar system, only 50 remained operational. They gathered at the edge of the system, out of range of Earth's weapons. Admiral Vornath faced the hardest decision of his long career: continue fighting and lose everything, or retreat and face the Supreme Overlord's anger. "Send the message," he finally ordered. "We are withdrawing from Terran space." On Earth, people emerged from deep bunkers. Many cities had been damaged in the battle. There were casualties this time. The Empire had managed to break through in some places, but Earth still stood. Humanity had survived again. President Martinez addressed the world. "We have won another battle, but at great cost. The Empire now knows we are a serious threat. Their next attack will be even stronger." In a secure room beneath the White House, Susan met with the president and other leaders. "We can't just keep defending," she said. "Each attack will get worse. We need to change the game." "What do you suggest?" the president asked. Susan unfolded a star map on the table. "We take the fight to them. We find allies among the worlds they've conquered. We build a coalition against the Empire." The president looked at the map. It showed thousands of stars, millions of potential allies. "You're talking about a war across the galaxy," she said. Susan nodded. "The Empire brought the war to us. Now we'll bring it back to them." 1 year passed since the second battle. Earth had used this time to rebuild and prepare. The plan to seek allies was now in action. Earth had sent small, fast ships to worlds that might help them against the Empire. The UES Horizon, captained by John Miller, visited a planet called Axtara. The Axtarans were tall, blue-skinned beings who had been under Imperial rule for 300 years. They were skilled shipbuilders, forced to make vessels for the Empire. "We bring a message from Earth," John told the Axtaran leaders. "The Empire can be defeated. We have done it twice. With your help, we can free other worlds too." The Axtaran leader, a female named Shilara, seemed doubtful. "No one defeats the Empire. They are too powerful." John showed her videos of the battles at Earth. "We found their weaknesses. We used their own strength against them." Shilara watched with wide eyes. "If what you show is true, perhaps there is hope after all." Similar meetings happened on dozens of worlds. Some refused to help, too afraid of Imperial punishment. But many others, tired of Imperial rule, agreed to join Earth's coalition. Meanwhile, Dr. Alan Carter and his team worked on their most ambitious project yet, a way to travel faster than Imperial ships. They studied the captured Imperial engines and found a way to improve them. "The Empire uses a form of space folding," Alan explained to President Martinez. "But we've discovered a better method. Our ships can now travel twice as fast as theirs." On the diplomatic front, Ambassador Nancy Reed led a team to establish a formal alliance. Representatives from 20 alien worlds met on a neutral moon to sign the first treaty. They called themselves the Free Worlds Coalition. "Together, we are stronger than the Empire," Nancy told them. "Each of us has resources, knowledge, and skills the others need. United, we can end Imperial rule forever." Back on Earth, Chief Communications Officer Kelly Peterson intercepted an important Imperial message. The Empire was planning something big. Supreme Overlord Xanthrix had ordered the construction of a new weapon, one that could destroy an entire planet. Kelly brought this information to Admiral Wright immediately. "They call it the Nova Cannon," she said. "It uses a star's energy to create a targeted solar flare that can burn away a planet's atmosphere." Susan's face grew dark. "How long until it's operational?" 6 months, according to their messages. "Then, we have 6 months to stop it." The Free Worlds Coalition gathered its forces. From Earth came 200 advanced warships. The Axtarans provided another 100. The Zentari, reptilian beings known for their courage, brought 50 ships with special cloaking abilities. The Pralaxians, a race of brilliant engineers, equipped all ships with improved weapons. Major Frank Wilson was given command of a special strike force. His mission: infiltrate the Imperial shipyard where the Nova Cannon was being built and destroy it. Frank's team included humans and aliens, each chosen for their special skills. Lisa Brown, now a captain, was an expert in Imperial computer systems. Kraz, the Imperial soldier who had defected to Earth's side, knew Imperial security protocols. Shilara's son, Taz Ren, could pass as an Imperial worker. Their ship, the UES Shadow, was the smallest and fastest in Earth's fleet. It could slip past Imperial sensors undetected. They launched without ceremony, knowing the fate of many worlds depended on their success. The journey to the Imperial shipyard took 2 weeks. Located in a heavily guarded system, the shipyard was a massive structure orbiting a dying star. The Nova Cannon was being built to harness that star's unstable energy. "How do we get in?" Lisa asked, as they observed from a safe distance. Kraz pointed to supply ships entering the shipyard. "We disguise ourselves as a supply transport. I know the codes." The plan worked. The Shadow was allowed to dock at the shipyard. Frank's team, wearing stolen Imperial uniforms, moved through the station. Tazren led, speaking the Imperial language perfectly. They reached the main control room for the Nova Cannon project. Guards stood at the door. "Act like you belong," Frank whispered. "Walk with purpose." They approached the guards confidently. Kraz spoke to them in the Imperial language. The guards stepped aside, assuming they were authorized personnel. Inside the control room, Lisa got to work. She connected a small device to the main computer. This will corrupt their systems, she explained. But we need to reach the main power core to destroy the cannon itself. Alarms suddenly blared throughout the station. Intruders detected in Section 7, a voice announced. That's not us, Frank said. We're in Section 4. Kraz checked a monitor. Another team? From one of our allied worlds? Frank didn't waste time wondering. This works in our favor. Security will focus on them. Let's move to the power core. They hurried through corridors now buzzing with activity. Imperial troops ran past them, heading toward the other intruders. No one paid attention to Frank's team. They reached the massive chamber housing the power core. It pulsed with energy drawn from the dying star. Plant the charges, Frank ordered. We have 5 minutes to get back to the ship. Lisa and Tazren placed explosive devices around the core. They were just finishing when Imperial troops burst into the chamber. Hands up! Don't move! The Imperial captain shouted. Frank's team raised their hands slowly. They were surrounded with no way to escape. Suddenly the lights went out. Emergency systems kicked in, bathing everything in red light. The other intruder team had cut the power. In the confusion, Frank signaled his team. They dropped to the floor just as Kraz threw a flash grenade. The Imperial troops were blinded momentarily. Frank's team used the chance to escape. They ran through darkened corridors, fighting their way back to the shadow. Imperial troops were everywhere now, but they were disorganized without main power. 2 minutes to detonation, Lisa warned as they reached their ship. The shadow detached from the docking bay. Frank piloted manually without lights, using only momentum to drift away from the station. They needed to be far enough away before starting engines, or they would be detected. 1 minute, Lisa counted down. Frank waited until the last possible moment. Engines now! The Shadow's engines roared to life. They accelerated away from the shipyard at maximum speed. Behind them, the explosives detonated. The power core exploded, setting off a chain reaction throughout the station. The partially built Nova cannon began to break apart. The energy it had collected from the dying star was released all at once. The shipyard didn't just explode. It was vaporized in a flash of light so bright it was seen across neighboring systems. The Shadow barely escaped the shockwave. The ship's systems were damaged, but they were alive, and their mission was complete. Send the message to the fleet, Frank ordered. The Nova cannon is destroyed. Begin the main attack. Across the Empire, the Free Worlds Coalition launched their coordinated assault. With the Empire's superweapon gone, they struck Imperial bases, freed occupied worlds, and disabled Imperial fleets. The Empire, for the first time in 50,000 years, was on the defensive. They had never faced an enemy like this before. Not one species fighting alone, but many species fighting together, each bringing their unique strengths. 3 months later, Frank's team returned to Earth as heroes. The war was not over, but the balance had shifted. More worlds joined the coalition each day. Imperial forces were retreating from systems they had controlled for centuries. In the White House Situation Room, President Martinez met with Admiral Wright and the other leaders. The Empire has requested a meeting, the president said, not to surrender but to discuss terms. Susan looked surprised. They're willing to negotiate? That's unprecedented. Yes, the president nodded. And we need to decide what terms we'll accept. Susan thought for a moment. They must leave all coalition worlds, they must pay for rebuilding, and they must recognize our right to exist free from Imperial control. They won't like those terms, General Douglas said. No, Susan agreed. But they've never faced an enemy they couldn't defeat before. They don't know what to do except fight or rule. We're teaching them a third option, coexistence. The president nodded. Then let's prepare for the most important diplomatic mission in human history. We're not just fighting for Earth anymore. We're fighting for a new galactic order. 1 month after the Empire requested talks, representatives from both sides met on a neutral space station. The station orbited a dead star, far from any inhabited worlds. It was built quickly by the Free Worlds Coalition just for this meeting. Ambassador. Nancy Reed led the coalition team. With her were delegates from 20 different species, including Admiral Susan Wright from Earth. The Imperial delegation was led by Grand Diplomat Vex Khan, a thin, pale alien with 4 arms and eyes that never blinked. The station's main hall was large, with a round table in the center. The coalition members sat on one side, the Imperials on the other. Between them hung a hologram showing the galaxy, with Imperial territories in red and coalition worlds in blue. "We are here to discuss terms," Vex Khan began. His voice was soft, but carried easily. "The Empire is willing to stop military actions against coalition worlds." Nancy nodded. "That's a good start, but we need more than just a pause in fighting." She presented the coalition's demands. All worlds currently part of the coalition would be recognized as independent. The Empire would pay to rebuild damage done to these worlds. A buffer zone would be established between Imperial and coalition space. And most importantly, Earth and all Terran space would be permanently off limits to Imperial ships. Vex Khan's face showed no emotion. "These terms are unusual. The Empire does not typically give up territories once claimed." "These are unusual circumstances," Susan said. "The Empire has never been defeated before. You have no protocols for this situation." The Imperial diplomat tilted his head slightly. "Defeated is perhaps too strong a word. We have merely recognized that the cost of conquering your coalition exceeds the potential benefits. Call it what you will," Nancy said. "The result is the same. We are offering peace. The alternative is continued war." The negotiations lasted 7 days. The Imperials argued over every point. They tried to keep some influence over coalition worlds. They offered less payment for rebuilding. They wanted a smaller buffer zone. Each time, Nancy stood firm. "These terms are not suggestions. They are requirements for peace." On the final day, Supreme Overlord Xanthrix himself joined by hologram. He was massive, with gray skin and a face that seemed made of stone. For 50,000 years his family had ruled the Empire. No one had ever told them no. "I wish to address the humans directly," Xanthrix said. His voice rumbled like distant thunder. Susan stepped forward. "I represent Earth and humanity." The Supreme Overlord studied her for a long moment. "In all our history, no species has done what yours has done. You defeated our fleets. You destroyed our weapon. You turned our own subjects against us. How? You were primitives just decades ago." Susan's answer was simple. "We had something worth fighting for. Freedom." "Freedom." The Overlord repeated the word as if tasting it. "An interesting concept. The Empire provides order, stability, progress. For the ruling class, perhaps," Susan said. "But not for those you conquer, not for those whose resources you take, not for those forced to serve Imperial interests above their own." Xanthrix was silent for a long time. Finally, he spoke again. "Perhaps there is something to learn from you humans after all. The Empire has existed for 50 millennia because it adapts. It evolves." He turned to Vex Khan. "Accept their terms. All of them. Sign the treaty." The Imperial delegation looked shocked. This was unprecedented. The Empire never surrendered territory. It never paid reparations. It never agreed to stay away from any part of space. Vex Khan recovered quickly. "As you command, Supreme Overlord." The treaty was prepared. Both sides signed the document. It would become known as the Mars Accord, named after the planet where Earth's leaders had first planned their defense against the Empire. As the signing ended, Xanthrix spoke once more. "Know this, humans. The Empire will honor this treaty. But we will be watching. We will be learning. And we will meet again someday, though perhaps not as enemies." The hologram disappeared. The Imperial delegation left soon after, returning to their territory to begin implementing the treaty terms. Back on Earth, people celebrated. After 2 years of war, peace had finally come. Cities around the world held parades for returning soldiers. World leaders gathered to honor those who had died defending Earth and freedom. President Martinez gave a speech from the steps of the rebuilt United Nations building in New York. Today marks a new chapter for humanity and for all free worlds. We have proven that freedom is stronger than tyranny, that cooperation is stronger than domination, that many different peoples working together can overcome even the greatest empire. 5 years passed. The Free Worlds Coalition grew stronger. More planets left the empire to join them. Some did so peacefully, others through revolution. The balance of power in the galaxy was shifting. Earth led this new alliance, but not as conquerors. They taught other worlds about democracy, about freedom, about working together as equals. In return, Earth learned advanced technologies, new ways of thinking, and the rich cultures of 100 different species. Admiral Susan Wright, now retired, stood on the observation deck of the space station Freedom. Through the window, she could see ships from dozens of worlds moving about. Some brought trade goods, others carried diplomats or tourists. All moved freely, without fear of imperial control. Captain Laura Mitchell joined her at the window. Laura commanded the UES Liberty, a ship dedicated to helping worlds rebuild after imperial rule. "We just got back from Zentari," Laura said. "Their cities are almost completely restored. They're holding their first free elections next month." Susan smiled. Another world healing from imperial damage. "Thanks to you," Laura said. "You stood against the Empire when no one else would." Susan shook her head. "Not just me. Everyone on Earth. Everyone in the coalition. We all did this together." On the other side of the galaxy, changes were happening within the Empire as well. Supreme Overlord Xanthrix had begun reforms. Imperial subjects were given more freedom. Resources were shared more fairly. Some worlds were even allowed to govern themselves, though still under Imperial oversight. "The humans taught us an important lesson," Xanthrix told his council. "An empire built on fear and control will always face resistance. But an empire that provides benefits to its members will earn their loyalty." Some imperial leaders resisted these changes. They preferred the old ways of conquest and domination, but the Supreme Overlord was firm. "Adapt or perish," he told them. "That is the law of the universe." 10 years after the signing of the Mars Accord, a monument was unveiled in Geneva. It showed figures from Earth and many alien worlds standing together. At the base were written these words: "No species has the right to rule another." Dr. Alan Carter, now an old man, attended the ceremony. He had helped create the weapons that defended Earth. Now he helped create technologies that improved lives. Across many worlds, was it worth it? A young reporter asked him. All the fighting, all the death to reach this point? Alan looked up at the monument, then out at the crowd. Humans stood alongside aliens from dozens of worlds. Children of different species played together. This was the future they had fought for. "Freedom is always worth fighting for," he said, simply. But the real victory wasn't defeating the Empire. It was showing the galaxy a better way to live, not as rulers and subjects, but as equals. As night fell on Earth, people looked up at the stars. Once they had seemed distant and unreachable. Now they were filled with friends and allies. Humanity had found its place in the universe not as conquerors, but as teachers of freedom. And somewhere in the vast darkness between the stars, Imperial ships patrolled the border of the buffer zone. They never crossed into Terran space. The Empire had learned its lesson. Earth was not to be underestimated. Humans were not to be ruled. The galaxy had changed forever, and it all began with a simple declaration. Earth and all Terran space were off limits to the Galactic Empire. They had declared it, and they had made it so.